This week, we are going to discuss open source in Hollywood. Woohoo! Welcome to Destination Linux, where we discuss the latest news, hot topics, gaming, mobile, and all things open source and Linux. My name is Jill, and with me are the wildest of robots, Michael and Wendy.
Oh, yes. Wildest of robots, 100%. I would say I'm probably the wildest.
Yes. Out of the three of us, I would say without a doubt, you're definitely the wildest.
Great. I'm not even sure what that means, but great.
I'm keeping all of my secrets to myself. I will let you be the wildest.
Perfect. Well, as you can tell, Wendy is joining us this week. Ryan is away for a work trip, but he'll be returning next week. So for those who are missing him, don't worry. Next week, you'll get Ryan again.
And we will also be discussing how Deepseek is making a bigger impact than people thought. Now, let's get the show on the road toward Destination Linux.
So we have a really big announcement for another show on the network, and that is This Week in Linux is hitting 300 episodes. And there's going to be a big live stream celebration on February 28th. That's a Friday at noon or 12 p.m. Central U.S. time. And if whatever time zone that you're in, don't worry about it. You can go to thisweekinlinux.com/live, and it will tell you exactly when that's happening. So you just go there. And I'm not going to try to do time math because everybody knows that's the worst. But TWIL 300 is coming, and we're going to have a big celebration. I'm not totally sure what we're going to do on the stream, but we're going to do something. I'll figure it out in the meantime. So if you are watching it on the day this releases, it's a few days from now. But if you are watching it anytime after that, well, be sure to hurry to put it on your calendar because Friday, June. What?
Not June.
Not
February.
June. It's just February. It's not that far from now. It's pretty soon actually. Yeah. So February 28th, Friday at 12 p.m. noon Central Time of US Central specifically. And in thisweekinlinux.com/live for not only the time changes and stuff like that, but also the full details. I'll have that in the description of the scheduled show. So check that out and hope to see you there.
Yeah, if you haven't checked out This Week in Linux Live, it's a wholly completely different show than what you get edited. Yes. I highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah.
Thank you. It is a very different show. If you've only ever seen the edited version, it is a very different show.
Very different.
And the edited version is a great show. The live stream is a great show, but they are very different things, and they're basically two different shows.
People on the live show like to play a game of can we get Michael off topic? And the truth is, it's not that hard. So come play with us.
And she's right. It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Michael interacts with everyone between each topic too.
It's a ton of fun. It really is.
I try to, and I also try not to. So it's a very hard.
It's a mixed bag. It's a bit of both. It kind of depends on the episode. Sometimes he does. Sometimes he doesn't. Show up.
Yeah.
You never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, it's a new thing every time. So see you there.
Congratulations, Michael. That is huge. Exciting.
Yes, thank you.
Very
so much.
Nice milestone. But we actually have community feedback this week, and I get to do it. And this week it's from Nightblade X. He says,
maybe pronounced Nightblade X.
There you go. Yeah, you do it so much better than me. I should have you just say his name every time. We'll do that Sunday overlay for you. Yeah, it's perfect. I was listening to the arguments made on Destination Linux for open source AI, and I completely, empathetically agree. Given the idea that a corporation is devised for individual gains without individual responsibility, it makes sense that open source would be more humanitarian. Ergo, in order for something like AI to be more humanitarian, it should be open source. Then again, I'm very much skeptical, cynic, and somewhat against money-grubbing corporations, even though, unfortunately, in this world, one has no choice but to rely on corporations. I
That's
do
true.
believe.
But what about money grubbing podcasters? If you'd like to become a patron, go to tuxedo.com/membership.
Or check out the store. There's really cool stuff. Even a shirt for me.
Exactly. Sinister Wendy's in there.
Sinister,
Go check it out.
Wendy is in there.
Yeah.
tuxedo.com/store.
However, this feedback goes on to say, I do believe that too many things in this world are controlled by corporations and money as it is. Why should our computers in AI also be up to corporations to control and dictate our lives? Also, I am into the idea that many eyes honestly looking at a open source for either AI or an operating system versus a corporation whose bottom line is the almighty dollar, not daughter. Hopefully they don't have, never mind. There's not enough humanitarian thinking in this world versus the corporate control. There you go. Very nice.
Oh, so nice. And I love your eloquent prose on the subject. Nightblade X.
Nice. There you go, Jill.
Beautifully stated.
Nice.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think there's a lot of good points there for sure. Yeah, it's very interesting conversation to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And corporations are necessary. It's like the necessary evil type of thing.
Right.
But it is what it is. But I do think that the open source in terms of AI is the fundamental way that we're going to basically need to go as the industry grows. And we're going to talk about that in a bit, actually. But I think that there's a ton of potential for open source and AI, and also just a ton of potential for open source as a whole to impact even more so than it already has. And it has a lot. So thank you very much for your feedback. And if you'd like to send in your comments, go to destinationlinux.net/comments or destinationlinux.net/forum, and you can let us know your thoughts on either open source, AI, or wild robots, or the wildest robot. Which one of us? Is it Jill? Is it Wendy? Or is it me? Who is the wildest robot? Let us know. destinationlinux.net/comments.
It's Michael.
It's probably me, yeah.
Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
As Linux users, we know what's up. Security is non-negotiable, but with threats getting smarter, your security tools need to keep pace without dragging your system down. Like traditional agents, they slow you down, they leave blind spots. I mean, there's time for a smarter approach, and it's now. That's why Destination Linux is proud to be sponsored by Sandfly Security, the revolutionary agentless platform designed for Linux. Sandfly doesn't just detect and respond, it revolutionizes security with SSH key tracking, password auditing, and drift detection, covering threats from every angle. Whether your systems are in the cloud, on premises, or in embedded devices, Sandfly ensures they're all secure without the headaches of agent-based solutions. Listen to what Ken Kleiner, the senior security engineer at the University of Massachusetts, has to say. He says, Sandfly is the first product I've seen that accurately and quickly detects thousands of signs of compromise on the Linux platform. Its unique method automates tasks which would be manually impossible. Automation is key with detection, and Sandfly completely fits this and other requirements. If your organization is using Linux, this should be part of your cybersecurity toolset. Experience security that's not just effective, but gives you peace of mind. No downtime, no agents, just cutting-edge protection. Dive into the future of Linux security at destinationlinux.net/Sandfly. That's destinationlinux.net/SANDFLY. And see how Sandfly can transform your security strategy. destinationlinux.net/Sandfly.
And you can actually test this out with a free license for up to 20 hosts, which is really an amazing offer. You can try out on your own. It's wonderful. And the interface to the software and its capabilities are actually truly impressive. We've even talked to friends in the industry, and they have mentioned this is really incredible. So we are getting the word out. Go right now and check it out.
DestinationLinux.net/Sandfly. If you've not seen the movie The Wild Robot, you're missing out on a very fun film full of beautiful animation and a really good story. On top of that, there's a lot of open source tools used in the production of the movie. Now, given we have our very own Jill who worked with Hollywood on animations, it would be cool to go through the tools that they used in this film with her, as well as some stuff that she's done when she was working on films. So let's talk about the Wild Robot first. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. It's really good. You can actually stream it now, so you can do that. And let's talk about what is being used inside of this production. And we have one OpenColor.io, which is a color management tool that was pivotal in creating a wide color gamut throughout the film's pipeline, enhancing the visual experience with a more vibrant and impactful color palette. And Jill's has given us really nicely, told us when these applications were started. So if you want to learn more information about that, we're going to give you that really quick, but we'll have links in the show notes for more details if you can dive deep in if you want to. And OpenColor.io was created in 2018. So it's a relatively new one. But the next one, this one is going to be definitely one that Jill has checked out because it's been around for a long time. And it's OpenEXR, a high dynamic range multi-channel image file format that allowed for advanced compositing techniques, and new developments enabled the creation of a hybrid deep/cryptomat technique. Yeah, for a painterly aesthetic.
Yeah, and that one was created in 1999, so I got to use it back in the 90s in the early 2Ks, and I will talk about that later.
Nice. And there's also OpenVDB, which was used for volumetric effects. This tool helps create the immersive scenes like the crashing waves, the waterfalls, the blizzards, and forest fires with smoke and pyrotechnics. And also, by the way, Wendy is, for those who don't know, Wendy is also the editor for this show. And I just want to let you know, Wendy, you do not have to put clips of everything that we're mentioning. If you want to.
Thank you for telling me that, but it's probably going to happen.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
I was just letting you know, if you want to take it easy a little bit, you could skip some of this. But anyway, OpenVDB was created in 2012, and OpenUSD, which is Universal Scene Description. This is not the United States dollar. It's Universal Scene Description. This tool managed every aspect of visual storytelling, including 3D shapes, shaders, texture materials, animation rigs, and all camera and lighting data. So that's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot.
And actually, that is a pivotal one. This is one I teach my students about because it allows you to share your scenes, your animation scenes, and all the keyframes and all the textures from one application to the next.
Oh.
So it's very important. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really excited when we got an open version of this because before then it had been a proprietary process and each software had its own, way of doing things and they didn't mesh together. So
yes.
Nice. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jill, this was made by Pixar?
Yeah, Pixar, and first published as open source software in 2016. Before that, it wasn't open source.
Nice. Not nice that it was not open source. Nice that it is now.
Yeah.
So, but also another open source project called Open Moonray was used. And this, of course, makes the most sense that it was used because this was made by DreamWorks, the same people who made the Wild Robot movie. So Open Moonray is an open source Monte Carlo ray tracer by DreamWorks Animation, which facilitated non-photoreal or NPR rendering aesthetics. It allowed for painterly effects through techniques like brushstrokes, highlights, and shadow detail removal. And it's very cool. And DreamWorks it actually went open source fairly recently. It was 2023. So Open Moonray is very, very cool. It's not only is it from DreamWorks, but a lot of people don't know that DreamWorks is really into open source and Linux. And they started Moonray fairly a little bit soon to where they open sourced it. So it wasn't like they took forever. And this was actually really cool because I had a conversation with Randy Packer of DreamWorks at the Ubuntu Summit. And we put that interview in Destination Linux 352. So you can check out all the great stuff that DreamWorks has related to Linux and open source. And I asked them what percentage of Linux do you use in your production pipeline? And the response was 100%. So that's a great one. And there's a lot more to it. So check out that interview. We'll have it linked in the show notes.
Moonray before it was open, you didn't have access to it unless you worked at DreamWorks. So that's why a lot of those of us in the animation industry didn't use it unless we were working at DreamWorks. I had worked as a freelance artist for them before, but and so I'm a little familiar with Moonray, but I was really happy when it opened up, because that way everyone could use it, and it's because it's a really brilliant renderer.
And also another one is OpenImage.io, utilized by Moonray for texture management, alongside Intel's Embry ray tracing kernel and OpenImage denoise library for rendering improvements. So OpenImage.io is open source, and it is just like everything else because it has the word open in it, unlike OpenAI.
OpenImage.io is actually an open source library for reading and writing images, and was created in 2009 after the closed source Image.io project by NVIDIA was deprecated. So, NVIDIA started the process. And one of the reasons why this is so important, especially with the Open Image Denoise library, created alongside with Intel, is for years and years, when you'd render an image, you'd always get a little bit of jaggies. No matter how high resolution the image is, you would get a little jaggy. And these take out those jaggies, especially when you're rendering, doing ray trace rendering and rendering things that have lots of reflections and refractions.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and for those unfamiliar with that term,
huge.
It means jagged edges.
Yeah, the jaggies.
Yeah. It's an industry term.
Yes,
for jagged edges.
Yeah, it is. Thank you, Michael. Yes. I just automatically go to the one I've been using for years.
For years and years, right?
Years and years.
Understandable. So, Jill, talk to us about your experience in animation, and have you used these tools before?
So, OpenEXR was created in 1999 by George Lucas at Industrial Light and Magic. And I would often use it to render out animation stills to use across multiple animation applications. On Linux, Maya, Blender, Krita, GIMP, Blackmagic's Fusion, and DaVinci Resolve can use OpenEXR high dynamic range raster rendering format. And in the industry, an animation house doesn't use just one animation application to achieve its art. Like I was talking about earlier, how we need plugins that work between, among all the different animation packages. So it needs, we need a set of universal plugins that work with all computer graphics applications. And OpenEXR was one of the first to do that and be open.
Nice.
That's awesome.
So and open source plugins and formats like OpenEXR work with most animation software. In fact, I don't know one it doesn't work with. And in fact, it's really wonderful. I actually know several people who work at DreamWorks that use Blender and have developed their own in-house open source plugins to work with multiple animation applications.
Oh, heck yeah.
Nice.
So
more
that's
and
why
more
this is so
examples
important.
of DreamWorks doing really cool open source stuff. But you're saying that this OpenEXP, that's what it was? Yeah,
EXR.
So OpenEXR was created in the 90s by Industrial Light and Magic and George Lucas, which reminds me of something. My girlfriend had never seen the original Star Wars. So we just recently watched them, and so I watched them again for like the umpteenth time. I don't know, and it holds up to some ways, of course, but it was so amazing to watch the movie with someone who has never seen it before, because the reveals that everybody, you would think everybody knows, but not everybody is listening, is paying attention to these kinds of things. And it also gives me more information about like the idea of thinking about, I live in a bubble of tech and sci-fi and all that stuff. But it's also really cool because she loved them, and now we're watching The Mandalorian. And so we got plenty of Star Wars left too.
Yeah. And there was something special. I remember your girlfriend noticed that a lot of people didn't notice in the early days when we were first watching it about the history of Luke Skywalker.
Oh, are you talking about the age difference thing?
No. That she knew that Luke Skywalker's dad was Darth Vader.
Oh no, she didn't know that. No, she detected that the age difference between Leia and Luke made more sense because they were having like the whole maybe Luke is with Leia kind of thing, or is Leia with Han kind of thing. And she said it would make more sense for Leia to be Luke's sister. And because she specifically said Leia's Luke's sister's age, so it would make more sense that way. And she said that within the first movie.
Oh wow!
Like I think like the first couple minutes they're on scene together, and I was like, wow, that was quick.
Yeah, that was it, Michael. I'm sorry. I thought it was. I just talked to someone else recently who had just watched it, who had figured out that Luke Skywalker's dad was Darth Vader without seeing the movie. All the movies.
Well, I specifically, she would ask me things, and like she wouldn't like necessarily ask me for spoilers or anything, but she would give her theories while we're watching, and a couple of her theories would fit so well that I have to say something like. I can't tell you. I cannot confirm or deny.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, exactly. That's an interesting theory you have that you are on spot on with multiple things. So it was a really fun thing to watch with someone who hadn't seen it before because I didn't know anyone had not seen it before, and I mentioned it to her, and she's like, "Yeah, I hadn't seen it." She said she saw some of them, but not the originals. Like. We have to go watch the originals. This is going to be awesome.
Well, I applaud her for getting through them because I've never been able to. So, yay.
Hal, get off the show. You're kicked off now.
Bye.
I'm old enough that I saw them in the theater. Oh my gosh.
So earlier we were talking about in the pre-show, Wendy was giving me a little bit of hard time for not having seen Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And now you haven't seen Star Wars. Like it's basically the same thing.
No, Star Wars has been on and I have lost interest. It has not been able to keep my interest. That's the difference.
Okay, we're gonna have to talk about this after the show because we have to. I have to figure this out. But we don't have time to figure it out on the show.
Yeah, we don't have
not now, because we have animation history of Jill.
Exactly.
Yes, gotta know more about this.
Yeah. So I was going to talk a little bit about my animation history. Most of these open source tools for animation we've been talking about weren't even around when I started working in the Hollywood animation industry back in the late 1980s through the 90s and early 2000s. I was using proprietary Unix animation applications on Silicon graphics machines, digital equipment alpha machines, and on SunSpark machines, like the animation software Alias Wavefront, which later became Maya, that were actually tens of thousands of dollars. Just Unix itself was over 20 grand. And then the computers themselves were 30, 40, 50 grand. And then the software was 10 to 20 on average. So
hopefully the studios gave you access to stuff.
Yes. So I did have access. And I am very fortunate to have some of those computers actually in my computer collection that I've used for my animations and doing home animation render farming with Unix and Linux. Unix
were any of the computers that you were using at the time from the studio's computers that they didn't want anymore, and there was like, sure, Jill, you can just have them.
Yeah.
Oh,
that
nice.
happened. Well, sometimes what was nice is they would let me borrow a computer for the project to finish the project because I needed something powerful to finish with it.
And I know exactly where this is going. You just didn't give it back.
Well, no, sometimes when the project was open, they let me keep it as part of kind of my payment.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Yeah. Jill's the type to they would choose to let you keep it. Okay, got it. Most conversations of like, I took something from the office. It's not like a computer involved.
No, never. In fact, I always offered them back, and then sometimes they were just like, it's okay, don't worry, because I ended up sometimes working for those same clients over and over again. Yeah. So that was no problem. And
awesome.
Unix was actually the industry standard in those days and was dominant in the film industry. At home, though, I also used Windows applications like Lightwave 3D, 3D Studio for DOS, and 3D Studio Max for Windows, and of course, Linux on my home-built animation workstations. And in those early days of animation, to include open source and Linux was something most people were not doing. And I often had to write scripts and cobble up my own tools to do desired animation and effects. But this resulted in animation studios I worked for as a freelance animator being very impressed with my work and often looking better than their in-house animation.
Nice.
And
get wrecked.
Yeah.
Proprietary.
Get wrecked. In fact, I have actually been, and this is I'm usually pretty quiet about it, but I talked about this years ago when I did a treasure hunt. I have actually been nominated for an Academy Award for a film I worked on and did visual effects for.
Of course you did.
And some of those effects were water-based. And in fact, one of the open source tools that we talked about that works a lot with water has some similarities to what me and the other animator I was working with at the time developed. So I'm pretty
nice.
Very nice of that.
Yes.
You should be. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I do have an Emmy in animation. It was
of course you do,
1998 and other awards in the television and gaming industries.
Of course you do, Jill.
That's okay. I'm very hard a lot of years.
Right?
Yeah, I'm doing that joke. Of course you do, Jill joke, because we've heard so many awesome stories from Jill that at this point, if you're just now into the show, you might not know what we're talking about. But Jill has said so many different stories over the years of doing the show that it seemed unbelievable the first 2 times. And then it just became a thing where she said something unbelievable and was like, nah, of course it happened.
Of course it happened to Jill.
Jill
did it. I mean, Jill's so nice. Of course it happened to Jill.
Exactly. Yes. So the fact that you have an Emmy, of course you do. The fact that you have other awards in both television and of course you do. Of course you do. And but also that thing about the water thing is really cool because a lot of people don't understand a very important aspect of that is that animating certain things that especially liquid or clothing, in fact, is a similar kind of thing. But it is incredibly complicated and like the complexities of getting of water animation to look like water is very difficult.
Yeah.
And to the point where there are companies who make software and their entire purpose of their software is just for water simulations.
Yeah.
And they make a lot of money from it because of how complicated it is.
They sure did. And so when I was in animation, those tools didn't exist. You had to create those effects yourself. And I would try to like with Warner Brothers, I tried to blow them away with my water skills, and I did it.
And of course you did, Jill. Exactly. Exactly.
And I can say a little bit. I did a lot of work on the wave in the movie The Perfect Storm.
Oh, nice. Okay. Very cool. Yeah. I mean, I have to go back and watch that again.
That's awesome.
It's been a long time since I've seen it, but
yeah.
So for those who don't know, doing water animations on a movie that's about the
storm.
Sea is a lot of water.
Yeah, absolutely. And that it took me hours. I don't think I slept for several weeks working on that project.
Oh wow.
But it was well worth it.
That's awesome, Jill.
Yeah. So I was working with a small studio as a freelancer, and they were in turn working with Warner Brothers. So
nice.
That's how. But I did a lot of work, a lot of touch up on that water, and you know what actually helped me with that is because, well, I grew up at the ocean. I live in Southern California.
Yes.
I surf, so that really helped
Of
me
course
make
you do,
that.
You
Jill.
had a lot of like personal experience with the waves and how they look and how they roll and crash, big storms coming into that area. I do have some questions for you about Southern California, but that can also wait until a little bit later. But yeah, that
we
makes
only have
sense.
so much time for this show.
I know, right? But it does make sense that life knowledge would help you make sure that, yes, that does look right.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was part of my life growing up. My family, we had a beach house that was kind of well known. It was in a lot of the old surf films in Mexico. My father was one of the big, really well known old surfers, and was in a lot of those surf films. And so this is just
nice.
Kind of an extension of that. So when I got a wave, I was really excited.
Of course he was, Jill.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. But yeah, so for the open source software, in the early 90s, I started using the open source, the Persistence of Vision ray tracer, or POV ray, for rendering in the terminal. That was one of the very first packages. In fact, I think it might be the very first open source animation package.
Wow.
And it was
nice.
That was early 90s. And I would also use whatever graphics open source software I could at the time, including the GIMP, or the GNU image manipulation program, released in 1998. I would do graphics with it, film touch-up, and animation. And in fact, the GIMP and a fork of the GIMP was what they used to do the touch-up animation for the Lord of the Rings series.
Ooh, now that one I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It's also impressive that you're using it early in the days of the GIMP
early
project,
adoption,
because
yeah.
I mean, some people would argue that it's not really great right now, but back then it was very early.
It was huge. Yeah, and people didn't realize the GIMP actually was one of the first programs on Linux that you could do animation on, thanks to its plugin framework. And in fact, I know some of the people that worked on the GIMP animation package plugin for the GIMP to do animation, and some of the effects with the script foo that allow you to use do the effects over time. So it was ahead. Believe it or not, in that area, it was ahead of Photoshop and any of those programs in animation.
So,
because those were the early years.
Well, when I think of
Photoshop
animation,
wasn't really animating in the beginning.
Yeah, when I think of animation, that is not a program that even like comes to mind at all.
I know.
My kids have done some manipulation with Blender. I have done some image manipulation inside of GIMP, but it's mostly like layering images and blending those stacked images for like macro photography kind of things. But animation, that's not anywhere near what I was thinking when it comes to this program.
Yeah. I never would have thought animation either, and especially back in the 90s. That's that's insane to me. But it's very cool. And also, just real quick, for those who are curious, yes, script foo is actually what it's called. That's the name of it.
It's really incredible. I know the lady who wrote the book on animation for the GIMP, Akana Peck. She's wonderful. And I was telling her how I used it in the industry. And that was she was so happy. She goes, "Oh, Jill, you're giving me tips for updating my book."
Nice.
So so you had the GIMP, and then of course Blender. When it started in the mid 1990s, people don't realize that's when it started. Was in the mid 1990s, and it actually improved so greatly in the early 2000s. I could really start utilizing it as a tool to do projects.
And now some people use it almost exclusively.
Yeah. Now it's industry standard. In fact, the movie Flow about the kitty cat, which was just released, was made entirely with open source software, including Blender and custom plugins for Blender, custom water plugins for Blender.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's just, it's amazing how, Linux and open source software has taken over the animation, computer graphics industry with both open source and proprietary animation packages. Because there still are a lot of proprietary ones, but there's a lot of open too.
Well, the fact that it's also on Linux is just awesome.
Yes.
I love that. And it's great, like how a lot of people talk about, like, no one uses Linux. Well, basically every movie that you've seen with animations is using Linux in some way. So, there's so many things, and it's just another notch in the belt of awesomeness that Linux is.
Absolutely. We need to stop hiding this awesomeness in like servers in the back end and like people not knowing what's going on in the animation industry.
Exactly.
Linux
we need to make
great,
sure
folks.
everybody's destination is Linux.
Yeah,
Definitely.
exactly, Wendy. And in fact, there's a wonderful consortium of users and called the Academy Software Foundation that is doing just that. That is growing open source in Hollywood and the animation industry. In fact, they have regular meetups. I've met the president before at the SIGGRAPH computer animation festivals.
That's cool.
And also because they work with the Linux Foundation, I have seen him also at Linux Foundation events like the Open Source Summit.
Heck yeah.
So
Very cool.
So they have meetings all the time, and there's other groups actually here in Hollywood that have meetups every month on using open source and animation. So it's big news here, but it's just the rest of the world doesn't.
That's great. That's great to see it in movies, and it's great to see these tools being able to be accessed by people at home. You wanted to get into animation. This is one of those great avenues that you now can. You can play with Blender. You can play with some of these other things. And
absolutely,
you don't need proprietary software in order to make a great movie.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, make sure to go watch Flow. That was complete open. But, the movie we're talking about today, The Wild Robot, that looks incredible.
Yes.
And actually, I have to admit, I haven't seen it yet.
Neither have I.
But I've seen trailers.
I have. It's very good. I have. It's a very good movie.
I've seen the trailers and the making of. So I've already, I often do that. I often see the making of before I go see the films because I'm planning to go see it. So
it's interesting how you do the making of before. Like some people even say that they like the Disney Plus now has a thing where it's like, get ready for the movie, and you watch these other, and they have the making of in it as well. That's kind of interesting. And I do that as well. Not on purpose. I don't even know why, but I've never seen Lord of the Rings, but I have seen behind the scenes of the animations and the special effects and a bunch of other how they did certain things.
Right.
And not the movie itself. So like sometimes I have the same experience.
Yes. Well, I just wanted to kind of end out my history of animation, which telling everyone, make sure to check out Jill's Treasure Hunt on Destination Linux episode way back when, 266.
That has been a while ago.
She has her awesome animation workstation, which has the best name for a computer ever, Cosmic Infinity.
Infinity, yes. And, I share information.
And it is a monster computer. It's like a massive thing.
It is. And I also share more information on my animation history, movies and projects I've worked on, and software I've used, and had a really fun discussion with Michael and Ryan. That was one of my favorite episodes.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Go check it out. Episode 266. And of course, Jill, I have to ask, is Cosmic Infinity going to be running Cosmic at some point?
Yes, absolutely. Actually, I've already put Cosmic on it at one point.
Of course you have.
And it ran it. It's a Pentium Pro, and it would run Cosmic, an older version.
Oh, cool.
So
that's
yeah.
That's pretty cool. Nice. there's a lot of stuff happening with the AI, but there's just something that we have to talk about because Deepseek is disrupting so much stuff, and it's in a good way. So Deepseek caused a really big disruption in the stock market. But we talked about that in a previous episode. And also it's going to be about it's also challenging the future of AI for a lot of people and a lot of companies. And this is a good thing because it's challenging it in the way of open source, making more and more companies look into open sourcing their tools. In fact, Sam Altman, we talked about that previously as well. He acknowledged that they're on the wrong side of history when it comes to open source, and that's great. I was also a little bit of yeah, but you haven't open sourced it yet, so. But it's possible that will happen in the future. But there are other ones that have done so. So this week we're talking about DeepSeek, and this Chinese AI startup has spurred competitors globally to adopt an open source strategy in their AI development. One example is Baidu. I think I said that right. Who just announced that the next generation of its Ernie large language models, or LLMs, will be open source starting from June 30th, 2025. No, Ernie specifically, not Bert. So just Ernie is going to
That's
open.
a good one, Michael.
I could not help it. But Baidu also made its Ernie bot service free on April 1st, 2025, moving away from its previous monetization strategy.
All right, so nobody's going to use it on April 1st because everyone's going to think it's an April Fool's joke. Bad date.
It is a weird date to choose.
It is. Yeah.
Honestly, as a person who's been in marketing for years, I would say unless you don't want people to believe it's real, don't do anything on April 1st. Because it's not even a thing that it's not even like a US thing. That's a global thing now. So many people know what April Fool's is. So just don't.
Make it April 2nd.
Here's a tip. Yeah, you could do it April 2nd. You could do it the day before and still be in March. It's okay. It's sometimes if you're doing it because you want to make a joke about it, that's fine. I have done things on April 1st, like I did an episode of This Week in Windows. So that was on April 1st. But not most things should not be.
My parents called me and told me that they were moving states on April 1st. I called them back on April 2nd because I didn't believe them and double checked to make sure that they were actually moving. They were. It was true. But between me and my dad, we've played so many pranks on each other on April 1st. I was not buying it until April 2nd.
Understandable. It's also you shouldn't announce anything on whether it's a company or whether it's just telling friends stuff. It's not a friends and family still also won't believe you. It's just and it's even the fact that you start going to news websites and they're doing April Fool's jokes. Leave it to the Onion. We appreciate the Onion because they are consistent. You doing one nonsense article once a year is a terrible idea. Don't do that.
We're going to end up with the situation of, what was that? The War of the Worlds, right? Yes. Let's not recreate that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Let's not. And also, there are times where people will announce something that they're like, haha, this is funny, but people want it. And that is the worst way of doing a joke, is that you're saying, back a few years ago, the GNOME project and KDE community did a joke on April 1st where they were collaborating to make Knome with it's KNOME. They were going to make this desktop that would work between. People want that. That sounds cool. And then they're like, psych, just kidding. Don't do that either.
Right.
But Baidu apparently is going to be doing it on April 1st. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe people will just ignore it until the next day. But that's also not all. There's more open source in the AI world. Alibaba, for those who don't know, is basically the equivalent of Amazon in China. They also have some major open source contributions. So Alibaba's Qwen AI model, QWEN, is powering the world's top 10 open source large language models, or LLMs, according to Hugging Face,
Jill's favorite,
the best named project.
Yes,
the best. I will anytime we talk about AI and we get to talk about Hugging Face, I will always talk about like such a great name.
It is.
For like anything. Good job. But especially this. The company released a Quinn 2.5 last September with more than 100 open source models, and Alibaba's cloud open source AI models have led to the creation of more than 90,000 models on Hugging
wow.
Face. 90,000.
This does not surprise me by Alibaba. A lot of people don't realize that Alibaba is on the consumer level, it's known as AliExpress here in the United States. So the business, in fact, I used to order from Alibaba like 20 years ago. I used to order inexpensive, Penguin products for our booth at the Linux Chicks LA booth at the Southern California Linux.
Yeah, because Alibaba used to be the name of the thing. I forgot that they changed to the thing. I knew they changed, but it's been so long.
It didn't change. What it is Alibaba is the business portal. It's if you want to buy large bulk. Like 30, 40, 50, 100. And AliExpress
I was pretty sure that back in the day, Alibaba was also where you bought in general, like long time ago. But I also could be completely wrong.
Well, here you actually could, Michael, but you had to contact the seller and ask if you could just buy like one item or two items.
Oh,
because I used to actually contact them before I would buy items because I couldn't buy 1,000 of their cute penguin squishies. I could only buy like 100. So
well, based on your background in your room, I don't know if that's correct. There's at least 1,000 in there.
Hey! She bought 100. 99 of them went to the Linux Fest, and one stayed home.
Yes.
Oh, yes. That makes sense. Yeah.
In fact, this one is one of those.
There you go.
Nice.
Fact,
she's got to get them for the. Yeah, I do have one of those. I think it's. I don't know if it's over here right now. But,
I don't
back
yet.
Since I moved, I don't know where I put everything, and so I if you go back to like episode 266 that has the link, the Jill's treasure hunt. That will have a bunch of stuff in the background, a bunch of stuff.
Well, so Alibaba is who owns AliExpress. It's also the parent company of Alibaba also owns Temu.
And that makes sense.
I buy a lot from all these. So that it makes sense that they have a huge AI model because their search is incredible on Temu and how it follows, what you're looking for. It's really incredible. So there's an AI model there at work. So I wasn't surprised to hear this.
Very interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool that they're doing these kinds of things. So like open source AI has been, it's always been a thing that people have been working on. And we covered it previous episode where they did that thing about like open source AI is a dangerous idea. Don't do this. And I would like to have another rebuttal because we talked about we would go back to that and if we had any updates and this stuff. So I would like to give you a following update to the person who made that article. How do you like them apples?
See, AI is such an amazing tool if used correctly. And so I love the idea of more services out there going, we should open source too. And just making the whole ecosystem in general better, more robust. Love it.
And open source is kind of perfect in this because of the fact that these AI, like the whole concept of these AI tools depend on content from others.
Yes.
Like they 100% require having
they already have to
content.
share.
So they should be open source from the get-go based on
exactly.
that. Yes.
Exactly. Because they're and we know for a fact that they are not taking just the stuff that's publicly available, just open stuff, just licensed. Like they even claimed that they required, like I forgot which one, but some of them even claimed that it was a necessity for them to take stuff that was proprietary or copyrighted and still use it for their models. Otherwise it wouldn't work. And they're like, so in that sense, don't you think you owe it to everyone to not be taking it and locking it down because you didn't make it in the first place? So I think this is great news. Hopefully, OpenAI stays true to the name OpenAI.
Back to it.
Absolutely.
And, yeah, open sources their stuff again. Or at least change the name of your company.
Yes.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Just on principle, if you're going to do this, at least change the name to be Closed AI. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah, and it's so true, Michael and Wendy. It's so refreshing, to see the shift to open source from competitors because of Deepseek's disruption in the market. And this has only happened like within a few weeks. This is what's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
How quickly this has all happened. And, like I've said before, leave it to an open source AI to be more cost effective, take less energy to run, and be more memory efficient. And that right there is why it's going to take over. And we have a system of checks and balances.
Exactly. That's awesome. And also, everybody in the AI space, if you're thinking about open sourcing, whether you should do it or not, just take the example of Deepseek and look way deep down.
I'll give you a C on that one.
That's not great, but it's not as great as the other one. But I was also thinking, like, how Google had Bard? They were so close. If they just called it BERT, we would have the perfect combination.
We would have BERT and
models.
Ernie. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, but then they abandoned it and went to Gemini, which is a little better. It's a little better than actually Bard was terrible, so I'm glad they did change that. But anyway, no one can be as good as Hugging Face. They've already picked the best one. So
yeah.
Or maybe they can challenge to any company who's in the AI, come up with a better name than Hugging Face. Let's see if we can do it.
Of course, this is all subjective to our opinion, whether which one's the best one or not. So, good luck.
No, I decide. I have the
Hugging Face is the best. It's my favorite.
Jill decides.
That and penguins.
There you go.
Jill decides.
Name it after a penguin, and I bet you win Jill over. There, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Although not Gen 2, because there's already Gen 2 Linux. That would make it confusing.
Yeah, don't go there. Mm-hmm. Something else.
Yeah.
Can't be Tux either. That's taken. Yeah.
Exactly. But we're not going to do your job for you. You need to come up with the ideas.
Right. Dang it. We'll stop brainstorming.
Trying to help them out. We don't need to help them. They need to do the challenge, not us.
So next time you feel yourself boiling over with some road rage, just remember, driving is really hard, especially for Ryan, who picked this game for me to talk about
today. And I
today.
love the fact that he's not here to say that he doesn't have a hard time. Yes.
Yes, exactly.
I think that he'd probably admit it, though, just because I've been in the car with him. I know for a fact.
Is it a bit dangerous?
Ryan is directionally challenged.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yes, it's that.
Gotcha.
He doesn't have the skills, and it's hilarious because there was a one time where I told him like I was really good at navigation, and I don't know why, and he challenged me, and I didn't know I was being challenged. So we went to I think we went to the gym, and we had to get back from the place, and there was like multiple turns, and he said, "All right, we're not going to use GPS. Prove that you know what you're doing, and tell me how to get back." So we started going, and I told him where to go. He's like, "Wait, what?" And then we're on the main road, and we got a little ways to go. And I said, "We're about 1.7 miles away from where we need to turn left." And he said, "If you're right, I will not forgive you." and so I was wrong technically because it was 1.8 miles, not 1.7.
Oh my gosh, you were a point off.
Yes, but it blew his mind enough, but also I wasn't completely accurate, so he still did forgive me. But anyway, so yes, driving is hard for many people, especially Ryan. But Jill, what is this about for the game that we're talking about?
Okay, so the game actually describes itself on Steam like this. Prove your skills by driving the bathtub on wheels, solve puzzles, collect soap, and dive into Jeff's family drama. Drive, fall, learn, repeat. And it's a
first of all, before you get to that, the developers of this game, what?
Yeah.
Why?
Why?
Of course, Ryan picked it
Right.
because it's right up his alley of weirdness. But drive a bathtub. Why did you make a car out of a bath?
Okay, probably
Why?
for the same reason that somebody now has a game using the horrible croc things, right? Because you can.
Yeah.
Somebody probably said something and they're like,
okay,
guess what?
That's fair.
That would make the perfect game.
Since we love the Crocs game so much, that's a good point. Jill, let us know about this wonderful masterpiece.
Well, what's awesome, it's still fairly new, and it has already over 70 positive reviews.
Oh, nice.
And it's cool because you can do things like, drive a bathtub.
Drive a bathtub.
And navigate Jeff in a physics-based bathtub on wheels. There are 7 worlds.
What other based bathtub would you use? Of course, it's physics-based.
There are 7 worlds to explore, each with very unique challenges and mechanics. Driving is easy to play, but it is actually hard to master and has simple controls, but very challenging mechanics.
I like those kinds.
And it is also an emotional journey as Jeff faces his father's expectations and find his own path.
Okay, I could do with everything but that. We could leave out the family drama and then it would be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, first of all, I was already on the fence about this game. But now I actually love the idea. For the reason why Wendy is not a big fan of that part. I think that's awesome because of how absurd and silly it is. Like, you have to deal with his father's expectations.
Yeah.
So he drives a bathtub on wheels.
Yeah. So there's something cool I'm gonna talk about at the end. Is honestly, I was really impressed with the game's physics and the fun challenge to keep the rolling bathtub on the road without falling, despite the extreme obstacle course ahead. Honestly, these are kind of my games. I love precision 3D platformers.
Good job, Ryan. You finally got her a game that she wants to like. And it's not a horror game.
Not a horror game.
Yeah, not a horror game. So Driving is Hard is a wonderfully fun physics-based 3D platformer, has really nice theming, vibrant graphics, great sound design, and voiceovers with tongue-in-cheek humor. In fact, the main narrator sounds a lot like the cheeky voice that mocks you from one of my favorite games of all time, The Stanley Parable.
Nice.
His voice sounds exactly like that. I'm like, is that the same voice?
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
And it really makes the game. It really does, because it's got personality. It's not just about driving obstacles. So there's a fun narrative there and a fun story. So grab this challenging game on Steam for only $6.99. It's so worth it. It was a lot of fun. I've played it now for about 3 hours.
So the shocks on this bathtub are the shocks that I want on my car.
Ah, yes. Huge springs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you can get a mod or something.
Yeah, there you go. There you go, Wendy.
This is a really interesting looking game, and it does sound pretty fun. It is. I actually do like games that are absurd in the sense of like they're just silly ideas. But this one was like maybe a little too silly, but hearing Jill's take on it, I'm going to give it a shot.
Definitely.
Yeah, since you like Rocket League, Michael, actually you would really like this game because of the precision needed and involved of keeping the card on the road.
So this would not be a good game for me because I am horrible when it comes to precision games, but it does look like it runs on Linux out of the box. Very nice.
Yeah, sure does.
That's always good. So a big thank you to each and every one of you for supporting us by watching or listening to the show, Destination Linux. However you do it, we love your faces. So you can join us in our Discord server by going to tuxdigital.com/Discord. You can also join our forum, tuxdigital.com/forum, and you can hang out with us. And if you want to support the show, we have multiple ways to do that. You can go to tuxdigital.com/membership and become a patron. You get a bunch of cool perks. You get access to the a patron-only section of our Discord server. You also get access to watch the show live as we record it. And even if you're not able to watch live, you can still check out the unedited episodes and also even get merch discounts and so much more. So go to tuxdigital.com/membership to check that out. And also, if you'd like to support the show and you want to support Wendy and get the Sinister Wendy t-shirt, you can go to tuxdigital.com/store. And you can get, while you're there, you can get all the other shirts we have. And we also have hats and mugs and hoodies and so much more. tuxdigital.com/store.
And make sure to check out all the amazing shows here on Tux Digital. That's right, we have an entire network of shows to fill your whole week with geeky goodness. Head to tuxdigital.com to keep those Linux penguins marching. And make sure to watch Wendy, Nate, and Matt on Linux Out Loud. That is such a fun show.
Thank you.
And I really love the last episode.
We're finally back. We recorded yesterday, so you will get a new episode after all of the robot craziness.
Oh,
nice. Good. And also, they'll be on topic this time.
No, we won't, but whatever. Everybody, have a wonderful week. And remember that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Thanks, everybody. See you next week.